Welcome to Not What I Thought. I'm Erika.
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Becca. We're therapists, entrepreneurs, and perfectly imperfect humans.
We first met during a business owner retreat where we became fast friends because we're not afraid to be real and ask the hard questions about life. What we thought it would be like, how messy it actually is, and the courage it takes to create the life we want.
We continue to build our friendship and personal growth through our own retreats. We find the deepest connection in sharing our struggles and finding what we have in common rather than what divides us.
We're breaking down hard topics on our podcast and together have conversations about what it takes to find real talk, real support, and real rest for professional women. We're glad you're here. Join us on your favorite podcast platform. All right, everybody. I want to talk today about divorce and how my experience going through divorce is not at all what I thought that it would be. So I had this family narrative. My mom's been divorced. Both sets of my grandparents have been divorced. I guess my parents, right? Because my mom's not going to get divorced and not my dad. Anyway, we cut that part out.
Well, I mean,
or leave it in, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I had this idea from growing up that divorce is awful. It's shameful. It's regretful. Yes, just so much shame. Like this is definitely a failure. And I for sure carried that into my own marriage. And even before I met my ex-husband and got married, I had this idea that like, I need to have a really great marriage and I'm never going to get divorced. And that mostly it was out of this desire to like make things okay for my mom, if I'm totally honest, right? Because I knew she felt so much shame about being divorced and like regretful that she couldn't give me a life that she had wanted to, or like anxiety about like, was the fact that she got divorced, like, was that messing me up in some way? And so it was this way that's like, well, if I have a really great marriage, then my mom doesn't have to feel bad anymore. Does that make sense? Sort of.
that she succeeded in giving you
Yes.
a foundation for a healthy
Yes.
relationship or whatever.
Yeah. So I, even before I got married, right, like that, I had that idea that like, I need to kind of make this right.
No pressure.
Right. Like, oh, poor little like 20-year-old me. Like, oh,
I'm feeling that. Holy
Thank
cow.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got married and it was good for a couple of years. And then it was not good for a bunch of years. And I know that there were like years worth of me, I think for part of it, not letting myself see how unhappy I was in the relationship because divorce just wasn't an option. Like I was not going to do that. Because of this, narrative about how awful that would be. And then I had my own kids and it's like, there were parts about my experience as a child that were very traumatic that were involved in divorce. And it was just like, I will not do that to my children. I just can't. And so I, kind of made the best of it. There were some things that were like, well, yeah, this isn't ideal in the marriage, but it doesn't matter because I'm not going to get divorced, right? That just isn't where we're going to go. And, spoiler here, I am divorced or in the process. We're separated, but not legally final at the time of this recording, but anyway. And there is just so much about the experience of getting divorced that is not at all what I thought it was going to be, and has been like really beautiful in ways that I didn't anticipate. Yeah. And like, yes, there was grief before it was all, or I guess as it was coming to being like the reality of this is happening, I can think of a couple of moments where like I went away from my kids so they wouldn't see it, but I remember sitting in the car in the garage in the dark, just like sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. This just is, it was that reality of like this hope that I had for all that my marriage was going to mean, or all that I was never going to have my kids experience or whatever. Like I really had to grieve that.
Yeah.
And it was, that part was rough. I don't want to say that because divorce is not what I thought it was going to be, that it's been all lovely, because it has not been. Really, it's been tremendous grief and a lot of sadness, a lot of anger in the process, so much of emotional energy that I have put into trying to make this okay for my kids, or you know, as okay as possible for them. So I definitely don't want to paint it that it's been all fun. But those like these big fears that I had about what it was going to be like have mostly not happened.
So say more about what that's looked like.
Well, I do okay. So if I go back a couple generations, my grandparents divorced sometime in the mid to late 60s. And so I have to acknowledge that like my experience in the 2020s, it's a completely different world as far as possibilities that are available, like earning potential, the laws that have changed. Like I do have to acknowledge that like it's a different world now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but the experience for both when my grandparents divorced and when I divorced, or when my parents, when I was a kid, was like the parent just left your life. Right? My mom didn't see her dad for a couple of years after the divorce. And, you know, when I was 11, I stopped seeing my dad too. He legally disowned us. And it was like, so that was part of my experience, was like, well, I could never do that to my kids. Right. So, and also, at that time when I was 11, we had to move states and there was a bankruptcy involved. And that's when the gambling stuff all came together. And like, it was, that experience for me was that divorce is losing everything. It's like complete devastation. And that just hasn't been the case for my kids and my family. And I think part of that is because of choices that I made long before, right? I worked all through the marriage, or through the majority of it, because it was important to me, even if I was working part-time, that I had some of my own income, that I had my own career, because it's very different to go from, my experience was, I'm going from a part-time work to like building up to full-time work. That's really different than my mom's experience of, she had been a stay-at-home mom for, you know, 6 or 7 years and then to get back into the workforce. Like I acknowledge that that's totally different. And some of that is my choices. Some of it is, we just finished recording an episode on money. Like, I did a ton of work around unpacking my money stuff and understanding how to be financially stable and how to, you know, manage money and save and all of those things. And we, you know, like after we separated, like kind of broke up as a couple, we stayed living together in the house for a while, in part to provide more stability for our kids and to allow me to increase my earning from part-time to full-time so that I could really live on my own. And, you know, I was really conscious because I moved out of the house, and I was really conscious when I moved that I chose somewhere that was close, really close for the kids. So
Mhm.
I'm a half a mile away from where their dad lives.
Mhm.
And so there's part of this situation being different that I recognize. It's like I made those choices. That was important for me.
Yeah.
My kids could still walk to school, that
Yeah.
if we forgot something at one parent's house, it's like not that far away. It's not a different neighborhood, all their same friends. Which was not my experience as a child. It was lose everything, move to a different state. So like it's
Right.
just that it's like, okay, this is different.
Yeah.
And when I go to places where I start feeling really anxious about, or that shame of, oh, I wasn't able to protect my kids, I have to come back to like, okay, but there are ways that you are doing this experience differently from how, your parents did.
And not just like, oh, tra la la, you're doing it a little bit different, like so differently. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like night and day different
Yeah.
than the trauma that you experienced as a kiddo.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was a thing too, that's like whatever, I mean, because of my experience of losing my dad and my dad and my stepdad in that process, it's like I am never gonna put my kids in a place where they don't have access to their dad. Like
Yeah.
I would never do that to them. Right. I couldn't
Right.
because of
Wow.
I know what that is like. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if, yeah. So like that's part of it. I made different choices, um, informed, I'm sure, by different circumstances, but also like I had been through it as a kid, so I kind of knew some things that I would want to do differently.
Mhm.
Um, and then I, oh, this is going a deep one. Right? I mentioned before that I had, lost access to both my dad and my stepdad, and it's still kind of in there if I'm honest. Like I carry with me this fear that people will leave me, that people don't really love me, that
Mhm.
like I'm, kind of expendable or disposable.
Mhm.
Like everything's fine now, but there's some part of me in the end that
Mhm.
always kind of assumes that people will
Mhm.
leave.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember one of my closest friends here knows that about me. And as I was talking through some of the specifics of what was happening with the move and all these people that were coming to help and support me, and my friend says, like, Becca, you really need to see this. Like, I need you to know that, like, you need to see this. Like, if you ever had doubt about whether people love you or not, like, remember this. From
Mhm.
like, I had friends who offered that I could live with them if I needed to. Um, People gave me furniture. I have a whole set of like, and not just a random set, like a matching set of dishes and
Yeah.
glasses and cookware and
Mhm.
art for my walls, and people who sent me money, and people who sent me, brought me a little like cleaning kit of basic stuff because, moving with a divorce isn't just moving your old stuff. It's like
Yeah.
there's lots of things that you don't get to keep and take with you. And so I needed all the things, beds and a toilet scrubber. And like,
Yeah.
it's like those are pretty big difference that you need both a bed and a mattress and sheets. And you also need like toilet paper and a
Yeah.
scrubby for the
Yeah.
dishes. And like just, I needed so much. And there were so
Yeah.
many people who live close to me that provided so much like tangible support in helping me move things and donating stuff, and people who live further away who sent flowers and gift cards and Venmoed me money. And it just was like, that was the biggest part of this is not what I was expecting. Because
Mhm.
my narrative said that you get divorced, it's going to be isolation and shame.
Mhm.
And when I announced that I was getting divorced and moving, it was like all these people who came toward
Mhm.
me with like so much just love and support, in ways that were both like surprising and also not at all surprising, if that makes sense
Mhm.
at all.
Because you're so loved and so fucking brave.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this whole other part of like, I didn't expect that the divorce would feel like growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there's ways through this process that I have had to like learn to stand up for myself and advocate for myself a little bit better. The divorce for me was also entangled with a coming out process. And so there's this part of like feeling more like myself than I ever have before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of all the work that I'd done on money stuff and whatever. It's not like I really doubted that I could make it on my own because I felt that confidence, but it's different than conceptually. I think that I could do this and then actually doing it
Mm-hmm.
and having this realization that like my life wasn't actually, in most ways, my life was not harder after I got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
In most ways, my life became easier. And that was something I didn't expect easy either. Right? Like time spent with my kids, I'm happier. Um, I just have so much less day-to-day stress in my life, which I would not have, if you had told me 5 years ago that this is where I would be and that I would be so happy that I got divorced, I'm not sure that I would have believed you. Or that my kids would be happy too. I would.
I think what's coming up for me is this shift from a deprivation mindset into an abundance mindset. You can have a big, full, beautiful life, you and your kids. And so that's so cool. As our friend says, another fucking growth opportunity.
Yes, a lot of this has felt like that. Oh, great. Here's another fucking growth opportunity. Here we go.
But it works out. Like
it does. It does.
Becca, if I can, watching you through all of this has been so beautiful. And I said you're fucking brave, and I totally stand by that. And I know it's been so hard, and there's a lot of the uncertainty and the fear that has gone along with it. I have a friend who's a nurse practitioner, and she years ago made the comment, there are things worse than death. And at the time, I was in a point in my life that I was like, what do you mean by that? What are you talking about? And as I've matured and lived life, I understand the truth behind there are things worse than death. And I just celebrate you. There's so much of my heart that just leaps with what you have found and what you continue to find on the other side of the end of this marriage that, yeah, that you deserve. And I can't wait to keep seeing what is next. You're welcome, friend. I think on the other side too of, I come from a family with history of people who stay together, even though there are relationships that you take a look at and you're like, but why? Why? Are we doing it just because? There are
Yeah.
things worse than divorce. And sometimes staying in a relationship is worse.
And I really didn't expect for things to get better for my kids too.
Yeah.
Like there are some ways that they don't like moving back and forth between houses.
Sure.
It's not like everything is rosy, but I don't recall now how it came up, but one of my daughters made reference to the time when at the very end he and I were still living together.
Mm.
And she said something about the time that's like, well, that was when dad was angry.
Mm.
And he's not like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is good too. Like they see it. Both parents are happier now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's ways that to the empowerment thing, like I am a better parent to them now
Mm-hmm.
than I was before, just in terms of tending to their emotions and being able to talk to them and talk with
Mm-hmm.
them about what they're observing happen in their life. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think and not because any of this was his fault at all, but I think there's ways when we were together that I held back a lot of maybe what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Um, and then I don't do that anymore. And I choose to believe that he also is a better parent
Mm-hmm.
because there's ways that he gets to be more his whole self and hopefully have a different kind of fulfillment in his life than I was able to provide for him. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was, again, not an expected thing, that we would actually be better parents to our kids separate than together.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. Yeah.
I'm so grateful that we did this episode because, you know, us being on this journey with you over time, it has been hard at times. And, I've been frustrated for you. I'm angry for you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you to be able to get to the other side, but I don't know that we've had a conversation, the three of us, from a kind of a zoomed out position. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just feel so happy
Mm-hmm.
Thank
that
you.
you made it to the place that you are, right? And you can see how much everybody loves you.
Thank you. Thank you.
What does your heart know to be true? Becca, anything else come to mind?
Well, I started this whole thing saying how I was so afraid of repeating family patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I was so kind of focused on divorce being the pattern, and I just can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my heart knows that like I can repeat parts of my family story without all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the like letting go of that kind of laser focus on the divorce part.
Yeah.
Like when I let go of that, it actually opened up that there was still so much possibility for me to have what I want and to still be happy, because my kids still experience divorce, but they experience it very differently than I did. And
Right.
that like the focusing so much on I can't get divorced doesn't have to mean that like I can't still be happy in my life, that I could, be loved, and that all of that could exist together. It didn't have to be one or the other. Their happiness or mine.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah, divorce like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the extent that I am able to create it, right?
Yeah. 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 It's significant extent though.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What does your heart know to be true, Yolanda?
My heart knows to be true that people who are willing to step into the unknown and tackle things, even through the uncertainty and the narratives that have come through family patterns, that being a pattern breaker is really brave. How about you, Erika? What does your heart know to be true?
my heart knows that all these big challenges in life, especially difficult situations, things that are enthralled with shame or that we want to maybe push down or keep quiet, those are actually the times that we're able, if we are able to lean into that vulnerability, we can actually connect with other people. So I'm thinking the things we don't want to talk about, right? Divorce, infertility, infidelity. These are the pieces. I think most of us just we want to cover them up and pretend they don't exist. But when we're able to actually walk in it, get to the other side, talk about it, you see how much people are willing to come out and want to, desire to help us.
That's definitely true.
Thanks for a really awesome conversation. Yeah.
Thank you both for your love and support.
Love you.
We are so excited to announce our upcoming live event. Join us online on January 19th, 2025, where we'll guide you through the sometimes shame and guilt-ridden experience of setting goals for the year. We'll have real talk about how goal setting can lead to burnout and real support for visioning a 2025 that includes real rest, connection, and play. Go to notwhatithought.com to register. We hope to see you there.